Okay, we're gonna get started here. Good afternoon. It is, I'm gonna date this, it is February 8th, 2024. I'm Deanne Battle, and this is The Composite, a talk show. We just talk about random stuff that's happening in the culture. Sometimes that's politics, which we'll probably get into toward the end of the week. Well, it's Thursday, so yeah, I've only got two options for that. Well, soon. Okay, so I won't put a date on that aspect of it. We get into politics. We get into, culture, art, music, film, whatever I'm seeing at the cultural water cooler. I primarily am engaging with folks online at the moment, just because of, where I live. And I've got an interesting work schedule. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, I actually had a different discussion planned for today, but I ended up watching the Monique interview on Club Shay Shay. And damn it. So, first of all, I didn't think I was going to be supporting that program, to be honest, because, and I addressed this before, I think maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago, but, I didn't appreciate, some comments that Shannon Sharp had made, comparing Beyonce and Taylor Swift randomly, oddly. I think it's just like, okay, artists that are making a lot of money right now and they're women. It's very weird because neither person does the same thing. But anyway, people keep pitting those two against each other, and he was jumping in on it, I guess, for clout. And I was like, nah, I'm cool on him. So I actually haven't been watching his show since the Cat Williams interview. I watched the Cat Williams interview was because it dropped, and immediately people on my timeline were like, whoa, 2024 is playing no games. Pardon me. I got a lot of eyelashes in my eyes. And so I watched that one interview, and then I dipped out just because I was like, I'm not appreciating these comments. But it was, I was seeing a similar response to the Monique interview, and, even when I don't agree with her, her perspective on things is always something that I like to digest and process. She gives you so much to think about. So I watched it. It delivered. It really, really did. And so I just wanted to spend some time addressing that. I might not stay on that long because I have work coming up. And so I'll log off a little bit before 1 o'clock, but definitely wanted to start processing my thoughts about that interview. So before I get into the interview, I just want to talk about some of the responses to it. So I'll go backward. And she addressed this when she was saying, we spend so much time focusing on the messenger that we're not evaluating the actual message. And I noticed that with Cat Williams, here was the theme, right, or the undercurrent or context of the negative response to Cat Williams. It was like, okay, bet, but like, why are you messing with people's money? Like, why are you taking this as an opportunity to take down Black entertainers, that are really successful, right? So it was less, not saying there were no people that said he was lying about everything, but it was less on some, oh, he's a liar. And it was more on, you are showing the emperor has no clothes and you're stopping people's money. And like, so why would you put yourself in that position to, attack so many people? Now, what I was seeing this morning before I logged on, because I wanted to take some time to prepare a little more for today, what I was seeing online in terms of the response for Monique, it's very tone policey, right? It's like, oh, well, she's calling people sweet baby, and referencing the influencer and broadcaster T.S. Madison, and I guess she said a transgender, which, at the time I was like, oh, but at the same point, I recognize that not everyone has someone from the trans community in their lives, or they might have people that are trans in their lives and they're not aware of it. So with that being said, not everybody is up on the current terminology, right? Or, you know, I think there, what she was missing, the noun, right? Because hi, English teacher, hi. Because transgender, right, is the adjective describing a person. So she could have said a transgendered person. But that's tone policing, right? So and listen, and that tone policing is coming primarily from other black women. So here's how I read the undercurrent of it. Again, I agree with parts of what she was saying in terms of black women and accountability, but, you know, some of it's not, you know, doesn't apply to me. But I feel as if the women that are tone policing her online right now are women who, they were still mad at her probably about that bonnet comment. They are very precious when it comes to Taraji P. Henson, and which is interesting, right? Because my understanding is Monique is maybe 3 or 4 years older than Taraji, but they are contemporaries, right? And so if they're contemporaries, when, you know, Monique came forth about a decade ago or so ago, and she talked about her experiences promoting Precious, her experiences with Lee Daniels and Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry. Y'all were good on it, you know, but then Taraji, it's almost like a pretty privilege thing. And I'm not saying that to shade Monique, because Monique looks amazing, drop dead gorgeous. I loved, you know, her makeup, the direction that she went in it. It was like glam, but not over the top. Her hair was on point, and the outfit, you know, all black, you know, decollage going. I thought she had a really, you know, wonderful stylist, and, you know, just she looks rock solid, you know. She looks, you know, just composed, and the unity of her intent is very, very clear. And so, not that I have ever seen her looking disheveled, but like I said, she was extremely grounded when I was seeing her during that interview. But so it's not any shade against her, but I think that there is a pretty privilege, right? Because, you know, I know, right, when you're big and black, right, there are certain ways in which as a female person, female identifying person, that you are masculinized in ways that you didn't consent to. It doesn't happen as much anymore, but like when I was a teenager and in my 20s, I noticed guys used to like clap me on the back sometimes, like I was one of their homies, you know, and it's just like, no, I'm a girl. Like, why are you doing that? And so or people would let doors slam in my face, you know, or would offer to pull out chairs for other women and not me. And it's just like, okay, when I'm in an all black space and this is happening, right, it's, you know, I tend to take that off the table as a racial issue. That's more of a, you know, of a pretty privileged thing. Like, oh, this is, you know, the dainty feminine flower, and you're just whatever over here. You're invisible. And so I think that there are elements of that in terms of how, again, some black women online are policing Monique's language and protecting Taraji P. Henson. These are just all my, you know, initial thoughts. This is probably the closest that I'll get to a hot take. BT dubs, because I usually don't do those. And So yeah, mad at her about the bonnet comment, trying to protect Taraji, and then what was the other thing that I was thinking about that I don't think. Yeah, I think it's part of her delivery. I think it's to a certain extent a class element. Maybe her delivery is bringing to the fore a particular type of blackness that people maybe don't want to see, or at least from her right now. But it's just, it's petty, you know? I would say if somebody is from the transgendered community and they feel offended by what she said, then I'm not going to tell anybody how to feel. But as someone who is not a member of that community, she didn't say something so out of the way that I need to come in and say, well, that is not what you do, and da 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 da. I mean, I think it's just at a point where that's just such performative allyship, right? Everybody can be a keyboard warrior and get on here and say, oh, well, she said it this way or she said it that way, and that's offensive to this community, so on and so forth. But are you voting for ballot initiatives that protect people from those communities? Are you, when you are face to face with people, are you correcting folks? So it's just, yeah, I'm cool on that. But again, there's less of people saying, oh, these were all lies. It was more of, I don't like how she said it. And okay, but here's my thing. The way my mind works, rightly or wrongly, because there are pros and cons, right? I'm a big picture person. So the big picture that I'm thinking about is we've now had, if you look, things, they come in threes, right? So we go from Cat Williams to Taraji P. Henson, and then we circle back to Monique again because she made her claims years and years ago. And so what this is telling me is that these are Black artists who are telling us that they're being mistreated and they're being abused by this industry, right? And so you can say, oh, well, she wasn't using the right terminologies, or she was speaking condescendingly, so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. But at this point, oh, hey, at this point, what I'm seeing is three Black artists telling you, what are they telling you? They're telling you that they are getting underpaid. They're telling you that they're being put in unsafe conditions on these movie sets. And, as they're trying to work, they're telling you that they're being sexually propositioned, right? Because Cat Williams did discuss that. They're telling you that other Black artists are turning their backs on them and contributing to them being blackballed in the Hollywood industry, right? So they're basically getting exiled if they speak up for themselves and say something. Hey there. So that's what I'm looking at, right? Like whether Monique called someone sweet baby and stuff like that. Okay, if that's where your mind is, where you want to stay, that's not where I want to stay. Why? I'm an artist. So I'm looking at this situation very carefully. And there are two things that I'm thinking about. One in relationship to Black artists, specifically in the entertainment space, and then one in relationship to how Club Shay Shay can be a different sort of platform. So I'll deal with the first part of it. So the first part of it that I'm thinking about is humans are animals, right? And so you have turtles and tortoises, right? They came from the same source material, right? But they evolved into different creatures, or frogs and toads, or alligators and crocodiles, right? And so as Black people, we live in the necrotic elements of late stage capitalism in the United States, right? Because that's where my focus is right now. That's what I'm talking about. And I would posit that we did not evolve to really function in that system. We're different culturally, anthropologically, spiritually, so on and so forth. And so listening to Cat Williams and then Taraji P. Henson and then Monique, I'm just wondering, at what point do we try to create different systems and institutions as opposed to integrating ourselves into the burning house, right? That Dr. King talked about. That's not working for us. Like, what if, you had 5 to 7 celebrities, right? And they had writers, and like, up and coming producers on retainer, just saying, okay, each person's going to contribute how many hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it wouldn't take that much because writers, we're cheap. Right? Unfortunately, people are not paying us that much. And so it's just saying, okay, here is a collective, here's a cooperative of writers and other television and film artists, right? And we're going to keep them on retainer, and they spend their year developing projects for Monique, or for Will Smith, or for whoever, right? And then when you're ready, you do the things, right? Because it seems that as studios and music labels and so on and so forth really try to undercut the artist, right? And really take the lion's share of the profits, you're getting more and more of these Monique stories, right? And it was probably always happening, but I wasn't aware of it. And so all of that being said, I blame Oprah and Tyler and Lee Daniels only to a certain point, because systemically it has, how do I articulate this? It's evolved for them to be the gatekeepers, right? And so now, whether or not they want to take on that role, that's up to them. But the system itself is set up where we're going to have this dam, right? And, Oprah has her finger in it. And when we're ready for some Negroes to come through, she removes her finger, and then, we'll have a trickle, and then she puts her finger back in. And so the only way around that, in my estimation, is to form different systems. And I don't think it has to be a ton of people, but if you had 200 or 300, I don't know, maybe 400, how many people, I'm guesstimating because, I'm thinking about, like, realistically, when you want to make a movie, right, hundreds of people work on it. So you would need probably like a database of like maybe 500 people. But what does that look like, right, if you can try to move to a more collective economic base? Now, I initially know, right, the detraction there is that there's a lot of deprogramming that has to go on, right? And unlearning, which is something I was talking about last episode. There's a lot of unlearning that needs to go on that People might not be ready for that yet. I understand that. But it just gets to be really shocking to me because part of my goal is, as an artist, I would love to make enough money where I have fuck you money, right? And fuck you money means that I'm not so invested and so worried about getting a check from a publisher that I'm willing to do things that violate my ethical codes. And it seems like in Hollywood, it's actually the opposite. It's like the more money they make, the more they're violating their ethical codes. Or the more they're being asked to do things that are counter to, right, their cultural makeup, right? So all of that being said, I just wish there was a way to move the conversation from here's the bullshit that Kevin Hart did to me, because it seems like everybody got an issue with Kevin. I want to move the conversation away from here's what Kevin Hart did to me and it was dishonorable. How can we move from that to, well, why does everything have to go through Kevin? That's the conversation I would really like to have. And I don't think you get to have that conversation unless you start thinking about what are some other systems. Last year, I forgot its name. But you know what I'll do? I'll post a link to the video that I watched. But it was a longer video, and it was about cooperative economics, a solidarity economy, and what like mutual aid looks like. Basically, how do you, when you have more limited resources, how do you pool your talent and your ambition and your industry? And that is where, in my opinion, our wealth as a people, happy Black History Month, that is where our wealth as a people lies, right? You can have a group of 10 Black people, right? And maybe they don't have a lot of money, but guess what? 2 people can sing. 1 person can rap. 2 or 3 people can write. 1 person is an entrepreneur. Another person is a scientist, right? And so we have wealth, but it looks different. And as long as we're pursuing a Eurocentric model of wealth and artistry, we're going to be, bottom tier citizens, because they are the tortoises, right? They're doing what works for their background. I mean, in my opinion, not much about capitalism is working right now, but they're at the top of the food chain, so we're dealing with it, right? So they're tortoises, and they're doing, right, what works for the tortoise. We are turtles. We need our turtle model. And I think because post-slavery, post-emancipation, because Reconstruction was a failure, we never really had the chance to truly experiment with different models of what our progress could look like, actually being resourced, right? We're always under duress, right? It went from slavery to, the terrors of Reconstruction, the rise of the Ku Klux Klan, to Jim Crow, to, then having to really, go full court press, and engage for civil rights. And then, in this, let's say 1975 onward, right, that's supposed to be allegedly this post-racial utopia. It's not, right? It went into the crack epidemic and the school to prison pipeline, mass incarceration. And so we haven't ever had a breather. But what I'm saying is those three individuals that I'd mentioned, plus, Jay-Z's speech for Beyonce, it's very clear. Like, these people don't want you in positions of power. They don't want you to have control over telling your own stories. So how long do we, continue to want things or continue to beat that dead horse in terms of exposing it? Like, you're only exposing as much as people don't know. But people know what time it is. Or, like, people who say they don't are deluding themselves. And so I just would like for us to have a different story. And I'm going to wrap up soon. And that, I would say, at this point is the only downside to the Monique interview. And I might have said this last season. As an artist, I think that there are different stories for her to tell. And I wouldn't want this story of, how she was aggrieved to be the overshadowing story in terms of her film, television, and comedic career. I think she has many more stories to tell, more interesting stories to tell. But at the same point, I do understand what she's saying is that she needs restitution, and she's going to keep talking about it until that happens. So I'm not naive. Like, I get that part of it. But then, at this point, are people thinking about Precious, or are people thinking about the Parkers, or any of an array of amazing projects that she's worked on? Are people thinking about that, or are they just thinking about the beef with Oprah and Tyler? And she's in a challenging situation, so I don't know what the right way to go about it is. And I'm not saying there's an issue with how she's going about it. I'm just saying from my standpoint, that's definitely a huge downside. Now, how does Shannon Sharp play into this? Okay, so you had Cat Williams on, and then I think that set the tone for the year, really. It was just like the interview of the year. It was crazy. And then now Monique is basically the part 2, the follow-up. That's cute, but can we get different people or like a different subject matter when it comes to talking about truth and accountability? Like, let's get some political figures. Let's have a forum, right? Because we've got an election season coming up and our options really suck, especially if you're Black, right? Because you already see what the overtones are in terms of the ways in which each candidate is going to neglect our community, but then also on top of that, create policies that directly harm us. And so can Shannon Sharp have Dr. Cornel West on? Can Shannon Sharp have I would love to see him just have some commentators on, like Teslin Figaro, or Brianna Joy Gray, or and I'm saying women, but even Mark Lamont Hill, I have some issues with him, but he does sometimes give really clear-headed commentary. So all of this being said, it doesn't always have to be about, right, calling out or denigrating people in the entertainment space. We have some really pressing business that we need to take care of. And now that eyes are on Club Shay Shay, I think he could do some really interesting stuff with that. But it seems like he's very scary, to be honest, because even with the Cat Williams interview, the Monique interview, they would say something and he would be like, oh Lord, I'm going to get canceled. They're not going to want, to come on my show, da 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 da. And it's just like, bruh, you either going to go hard in the paint with it or you're not, right? Either you want people to come on there and to drink whatever it is that you have on that table. I am extremely curious because everybody seems to love it. And say their piece, or you just want to do fluff. And if you want to do fluff and you just want to contribute to the systems that are in place, hey, most people are doing that, right? So I can't knock you for it. But I think that this is a really vital time and a really great opportunity for him to use that platform and for us to have different conversations, right? Like, we need to decide what we're going to do electorally. And I'll say one or two more things and then I'll log off. But I remember I was talking with a friend one time and just really expressing frustration about the lack of unity that I was seeing in the Black American community. I won't speak for Caribbean or West African folks or just African folks in general. They can speak for their own communities. But I saw, with people who had the same ethnicity as me, I was seeing a lot of disunity. And I said, well, what is this really going to mean for us? And so she was saying, and she made a point that, like, there are so many Native American kin groups, right, that have eventually, right, gone away. And not because the people don't exist, but because the bloodline shifted, right? Because they were eventually, from a lineage standpoint, integrated into white folks. So, you have people like, oh, my great grandmother was blah, 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 right? And so she was like, well, that's most likely going to be our story as well, right? There'll maybe be like a small group of people who are Black American by lineage, meaning, descended from people who were enslaved in the U.S., but that the rest of us will integrate into different races of people. And it'll be like, oh, my great, 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 great grandmother was Deanne Battle, right? And I was really sad when she said that, But here's the thing. I think 2024 is our chance to really decide what that's going to look like. Because whoever of the terrible options that we have that end up in the White House, they're trying to get rid of us. They really are, in extremely visible and tangible ways. And so to know that, right, your blood, somehow spiritually, maybe that you're connected to the descendants that come up after you, right? And to know, it's not all lost, right? Just like, my ancestors can look at me and know it's not all lost. So I don't want to present it as a wholly terrible thing. I think the part about it that would be specifically tragic is that if we saw it coming and we didn't actually exercise our autonomy and say, are we okay with this, or can we do something different? And whether it's, a solidarity / cooperative economic model where the artists are really disengaging from the stranglehold that studios and the music industry have on artists, or it's something else. I think because Shannon Sharpe has all of these eyes on that platform, I think we can start, using that space to have these discussions, right? Because BET ain't it. We don't have those spaces where we can hold space for truth and accountability. So if that's who Shannon Sharpe wants to be, I have so many ideas of folks that he can bring on. And I appreciate him and his producers. It does seem like they do a lot of background research when they have these guests on. So that's why I think it could be fruitful. Kind of like the old Donnie Simpson interviews, or even like Tavis Smiley. There could be that element there. But sorry, I keep using fillers here. But the long and the short of it is, if it's just going to be a space for people to come and be messy, and I'm using messy in quotation marks because I don't think Kat and Monique were being messy at all. But if that's going to be the perception, then that continues to do us a disservice, right? I mean, that's basically, just an elevated version of like Love and Hip Hop or Krishan and Blueface. That's not what we want. We want, right, to have truth and accountability, because then that leads to healing, which then leads to productivity, which then leads to us elevating our stations, elevating our situation in this country and on this planet. Okay, so those are the remarks that I had about the Monique and Shannon Sharpe interview. Okay. The Club Shay Shay interview with Monique. And thank you for watching. And I'm going to post the replay on Instagram and then on YouTube. I'll also link the video that I saw about like solidarity economies and cooperatives and collectivism, because I want to really make more time to learn more about that this year, to get into that this year, because it seems like there's really no other way. Capitalism, late stage capitalism, all it's giving us is war, death, and destruction. They're destroying things so they can make more money. It's crazy. And it's going to kill this planet. And I don't want that to happen. And I think as a people, because we are so blessed with talents and intellect and gifts and resources, I think we can really lead the way in terms of showing people different options. All right. God bless. And I will see you next episode. I might not go live tomorrow, but maybe Saturday. We'll see. Maybe I'll do a Saturday night party or something. I don't know. All right. Take care.